Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Tamika Carter, and I want to welcome you again to the 97th Annual AGC Convention. Today's session will be How the Pieces Fit: BIM, CPM, Lean, Cost, CQM, Training, Computers, Technology, and People. Please don't forget the people. Before we begin our presentation, I have a few brief announcements. AGC is offering continuing education units for today's session. To obtain, to obtain CEUs, you must have your badge scanned, you must attend 95% of the session, and complete the brief assessment that you'll get by email. You must also complete and return the session evaluation at the end of this session. Today's session is being recorded, so we are asking that you place your cell phones on silent before we begin. I would like to introduce our speaker for today. Bcrosby is the director of BIM for Yates Construction Company, and he is very passionate about the process of building and education. As a builder, he wants to motivate each person to understand virtual design and construction and how it impacts their projects and their careers. His educational background includes a bachelor's in construction management with minors in math and physics. He is a member of the AGC IT Forum Steering Committee, the BIM Forum LOD Core Group, a member of CMAA, and a certified construction manager, lead AP BD plus C, CM BIM, and instructor for the AGC BIM Education Program and the AGC Lean Construction Education Program. Benjamin, thank you for being with us today. Now I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe that helps you understand why I'm worried about making it all fit, because I try to understand all of these things and try to help our company pull all of these different pieces of stuff together. I also, when I started off with project manager, project engineer, I was a full-time scheduler. And so that's why I try to emphasize schedule as well. And the reason I've picked these different things as we've come through is my goal has been, I want my projects to be more productive and more efficient. And I need to get to the slide to get to that. Here's the copyright. All right, we got that. Here's how you earn your CEUs. Hopefully you've been at the presentation. You've read the slide 4 or 5 times already. All right, the learning objectives. Okay, how do we align LOD? So this is a term from BIM. I'll introduce it to you briefly. But like I said, I'm not going to dive really deep into things today. I'm trying to keep this overview with the idea of a mid-sized company coming away from this with ways to be able to implement and pull techniques in. And then apply models to the CPM schedule, how to use BIMs for estimating, quality and pulling quality in and back and forth to it, 4D, and getting the people to participate. So how do we do it? Do we centralize our focus? Do we decentralize it? Do we have project-based efforts? And I want to try to lay out some groundwork on how to approach that. I was fielding some questions before we got started. Those of you that came in, I would love to try to, if I'm missing something, if it's just not there, speak up, please. Because I talk about this often and I overlook some things sometimes. And so please pull me back into it, and I'll be happy to do that as we go. So it's all going to come back to people. People have to do this work. You can put out a policy, you can put out a procedure, you can have all of this planned, but someone has got to do it. And okay, so how do we use them all? And so it's all just kind of a jumble. They all bounce around. They all feel like they're mixed up, but we've got to take care of all of them. You'll notice I threw a $sign in there. Every construction company, you've got to make money. Otherwise, you cease to be in business. You cease to hire people. You can't perform anything. We have to be profitable on our projects. So technology is great, but it's got to turn around and hit us to the bottom line and make us better at what we do. And so when I realize lots of you in here, it's not your first rodeo. It's not my first rodeo. Done this many, many times. But part of my major focus is on this productivity chart. How many in here before have seen this productivity chart? Okay, more than half. The concept is 50 years ago, we were more productive as a construction industry than we are now. I find that personally embarrassing. I'm part of the construction industry, and I wish we could do better. And so I think that BIM, lean, and proper scheduling and quality all have to work together to really change this and get us where we should be. And that's up there with the rest of the industry. Okay, I'm going to overlay this as a process. So what you see here, This one really washed out. Virtual design and construction, or BIM, I use this template in all of my BIM stuff. What you have is your contracts, and that's where we have to get started with things. And then we have to, this is kind of design build basis here, but this is the flow of an entire project. You have to author a design. Someone has to model. Even before that, they might do a schematic design, something in SketchUp, or just a napkin, sketch that somebody says, this is my dream. All of this has to take place. You have a whole shop drawing coordination phase. And then we have some prefabrication and then field installation. And so we're going to flow through this and try to drop these elements in place as we go to show how virtual design and construction and BIM ties in with everything, and everything ties in together. We're going to end up here, right? I'm going to talk about BIM, schedule, estimate, lean, quality, people. And I'm going to go through all those phases as we go through the project. This is the overview. We're going to build this and get up to here by the time we're done. So for those of you, how many of you here are familiar what BIM LOD is? About half. That's good. We're gaining ground. BIM Forum actually is produced this LOD document. It's a set of specifications. Basically, it tells us what a model should really look like. We have a whole series of images for lots of various different trades and things in it. And so you have plumbing, steel, wall structures, and they tell you at a level of development 200, this is what your stuff's going to look like. At 300, 350, 400, we're putting definitions to these models. We're also realizing the fact that we don't start with all the details when you begin. It has to build as we grow. 100 and something pages, 190 something pages, lots of good graphics, easy to understand. If you're doing BIM, this should be part of your specifications for every project you're doing. If the owner hasn't put them in there, you ought to include them. It provides you definition. Great starting place if you're just getting going. When you're talking to architects, engineers, whoever you're communicating with, this gives you definition and it gives you a basis. Okay? The next basis on scheduling, AACEI. I'm using their definitions of schedule. There's lots of other definitions of schedule. All of them are fairly the same. Schedule grows as you go through the project. That level 1 schedule, very simple, very simplistic. In fact, here's there's all the text. I put the text in here. You can download the slides and read it later. I'm not going to spend time reading this to you now. But the schedule grows. Okay? So estimating, also using AACEI's definitions of estimating to try to tie this together. Once again, they have a great document. You can go download. The text is here. You can download this, find it later. But the scope information grows and the cost refines as we go through a project. We don't end up with just one estimate, unless you're hard bid, but we're trying to do this in a better form of contracting than hard bid. Okay, so here's more definition on your estimating with that class 5, being, just screening feasibility. That's that napkin sketch. Somebody says, nah, how much is this going to cost? And I love that. How much is this going to cost? You don't want to give them a number, right? You're like, I can't, it's a napkin sketch, right? Oh, just ballpark it, right? And then I always ask them, you want a bunt or a home run, right? If I'm going to ballpark this, because anyways, that's your class 5 estimate, and then we get definition, we can really go to it. I'm going to pull in the AGC. All the information I'm pulling in on lean is from the CM lean program that AGC has put together. It's a great program. It took all the knowledge from LCI and condensed it into 38 hours of class time or something like that. Good set of classes, okay? These are the concepts I'm going to drop into place. Hopefully you attended some of the other lean sessions. How many of you are familiar with Last Planner? Good. Okay, I'm not going to explain what it is, but we're going to drop it in place. How many of you are familiar with target value design? How many have actually participated and done target value design? All right. I'm just going to try to drop these into place and not provide definitions. If you are new and you're not familiar with these definitions, I would recommend the AGC's CM Lean program to get you familiar with them. Okay, quality. This is pulling out of your total quality management from the Army Corps of Engineers. The various things that they talk about and want us to implement. 3-phase inspections, which that's your preparatory, initial, and follow-up. Dropping all of these into place to try to make them all happen. All right. Okay, we have now the people. There's a whole wide range of people that got to be participating as we go through this process. I have seen way too many BIM programs, lean programs, and quality programs that are centralized back in a home office and not out on the job site. I'm telling you, all of those programs, you might have some corporate center. And large companies have this problem of having a corporate center. Your medium and small companies usually don't have this problem. They have problems of trying to get people to multitask. But that multitasking is a better problem than trying to decentralize your efforts. It's got to be taking place on the field, where the work is being installed. Unless these things are happening there, they don't count, because they're not changing our productivity and efficiency on a project. And then, as we go through these phases and we lay it out, BIM grows with the project. That level 100 on the far left is your schematic design. And I'm going to start rolling through images, and lots of you will recognize what we've seen on these and how they play into it. You have 100, then 200, 300, 350, 400, 500. And we're going to grow with this as we move across. Okay, so now, I've given you the overview, the background. Let's start having some fun. Schematic design, level 100. Your major participants, the owner, they've got to be reviewing this design. They've got to be communicating their desire for what this structure, building, rail line, whatever it is we're building, what it's going to be, where it's going to go, what it's going to function. Okay, so if we have an image, here is a sample level 100 from a project that's in Jackson, Mississippi. Oh, let's unmute. Okay, you guys know the rest, you know how it goes. All right, but we want to keep playing. So any ideas, guess on the software we use for this? SketchUp. You know, Revit, you can do that. Revit is a little more hard. Revit, we're going to see come into play a lot later on more. This is SketchUp. It's quick, it's easy. Gives them a good view. If you go through the walls, there's nothing there, right? It's pixel thick. I can't build anything in pixel thick. Haven't figured out how yet. And so, but this gives you an idea of what a level 100 model would look like. All right? Schedule, early on. That's all the design we have. So all we're looking at on the schedule is they couldn't tell us when they wanted to start. They had to wait for an act of legislature, literally. That's what they were waiting for, was the legislator to pass the proper tax incentives and everything to make it work. But they did know they had to finish. Phase 1, 15 July, second phase, 15 August. Had to be open for Black Friday. There's no such thing as a late day. There's nothing, right? If you are not open for Black Friday, the whole project doesn't make the dollar value. The whole thing fails. So it doesn't make a difference. There's absolutely no excuse possible. Okay? Estimate at this phase, purely square foot cost. So you really want to have an estimator that's been involved in a core and shell outlet mall before, right? Because he's just throwing numbers at it. So we're talking about that's that class 5 estimate. Give me the ballpark number. Yeah, we hope we're close, right? We're really going to shoot for a nice line drive over second base, get them on base, call it good. Lean. We're early on. We're talking about total quality management, overall project, making sure everything functions, right? Making the schedule as part of being a quality project, all of that. But really, we're talking about lean design. How efficiently can our architects and engineers make decisions and get the owner where they need to be at the end of this project? Quality, we're really focusing on constructability reviews. So we talk about who's doing that. At your company, if you're on a design build project, or even you're first getting in a set of hard bid drawings, who is looking at them for the quality of the design, right? Is this doable, right? Are the details actually going to work? Are they going to leak? Those sort of things. So we've got all of these different people involved, all trying to implement and take care of these different elements. So we can take, when we're pulling the cost in, we can start to do a cost schedule. There's software out there that lets you do a very schematic design. And you can see this is an auto manufacturing facility, and you're going to have some site development. There's costs associated with that. You basically blocks the building, right? That's a paint shop, right? And you're, probably $400 a square foot, something like that on the paint shop, depends upon how complex they're getting. And then you have all these different elements coming in. This helps, this is all the information we have, but it helps the owner understand how it's going to phase and what it's going to do. Now there's cost associated with this too, and then we can show them a general curve of their funding. When are they going to have to cut checks to us to pay for it? Starting to pull this together and give them a visual of these different elements. Okay, so that gives us kind of an overview. That was LOD 100. We're working with these different groups. We're really focused on the designers. We got to have somebody from the contracting team looking at the quality of constructability. And we're trying to pull all this together, and all those pretty much fall in line. You can't, if all you have is an LOD 100 model, you can't give a class 1 estimate. You just don't have the information. And I see that often when people are starting to do all this, they want to jump ahead on different elements, especially with the model. They want the model to look perfect right out of the gate. That's not a feasible way to do it because we don't have the scope definition to drive it yet. Same thing with the people, right? You got to get them involved. You can't have the designer that says, this is my phase, I'm only going to do it. We've contracted in those scenarios before. They don't work very well. What we need to have is the team working together, talking about it, bringing in key subcontractors. Like on that project I showed you, the precast that was going all around there, they had to be early in design. Everything was going to hub around them getting the precast up. They were the structure. Okay, so we just covered the level 100 model, schematic phase, early design. Let's bounce up to 200, 300. Let's start to see what that's going to look like. Your model is probably going to look something like this. This is that same outlet mall, but now we can actually go inside and see what things look like. We have structure, we have slab, you can see some of the bar joists. The bar joists, we're not going to be routing ductwork through them yet. We can't really be running clash detection. This is early on, right? But we do expect the engineers not to be overlapping things for us. But we have something to walk through. It doesn't look all that pretty yet, but we're starting to get constructible sort of drawings that come straight from the model. That is a pitfall I have seen when people go to do BIM. They think they're going to produce drawings and then pay maybe somebody over in Indonesia or India to produce a model and then use it. I would avoid that at all costs, because that model, then now you have to keep those in sync. That workflow doesn't work. If the model changes, then somebody has to change the drawings, or if the drawing changes, somebody has to change the model. That falls apart about 3 months into every project I've ever seen it take place on. The key is the model is the basis of design. So you have the model, and if you need a plan, you print. It comes straight out of the model. And that's a good question to ask people. That is true for design documents, architects, engineers. That is even more important on shop drawings, right? They should be shop models, and we'll get to that later on. I'm ahead of myself. All right, so that's what the model looks like. This is what our schedule is going to look like, a level 2 schedule. Right? This is $50 million worth of work, and we've got 42 line items on this schedule. So when do we see a schedule like this? Concept, presentation, right? We're going in there to try to win some work. This general outline. We got all these long bars, they overlap. One of those bars is MEP. You can't schedule MEP all in one bar, right? But that's what you do in the presentation phase, right? Okay. Now, at some point in time in the same phase, because this is 200, 300, we're going to build that up and get us to a level 3 schedule. Now we're talking about a much bigger schedule. 2,900 activities, well, 3,000 effectively, for a $50 million project, right? That's a real CPM, level 3 CPM schedule. Some companies don't even ever build a level 3 CPM schedule. To be productive and be efficient, you've got to plan the work. And this is how you plan it. And then, of course, today I'm going to try to take you level 4 and level 5 too. So we'll get up to that. So here's some examples of what that looks like. We have a level 200 model with a level 2 schedule. And we start to tie those both together. So now we can identify major areas of work. We can see the demo taking place. We can see ramps being added in red, and then that ramp is added. That means the old ramp can demo. Once that's demoed, now we can start actually building the building. All of that work had to take place to get there. So now we're starting to communicate plans. Now, and this is very schematic. This is easy to put together, but it shows the owner rough time frames. When do they have to shut down the entrance? When do they have to move their helipad? Because that helipad is not functional while that crane's in that area. We're starting to communicate and tie these things together. Just when I pull people back into this, estimators are building this. That schedule's not complex. There's nothing fancy in there. But the estimator is building all the costs. He's assigning costs to this model. And the phasing is just really simple. Although everybody thinks the phasing is the most amazing part because it just plays right there in front of you. But it's all tied together. Okay, let's take it to the next level. So this is mainly an LOD 200, but there's some elements of 300 in it, and this is a level 2 to 3 schedule. You're going to see that as we got further along in this project, we were able to take our footings and our foundations to a level 3 schedule and start to represent it. So at level 3, then we can use this to go out to the contractors, the subcontractors, specialties to start to give their feedback. Can you really pour the slab as a single piece like that? Or do you need to break this into 2? Then we need to go back and edit our schedule. But you can see the difference here. We actually have some columns in place. We showed some footings coming in. Much more detailed schedule. You can see our activities actually have floors broken out. A lot more going on up there on the look-aheads. But now we're really starting to communicate this. Now we can start bringing safety in. We can start bringing quality in. How are you going to pull these things together? This is a schedule. These are the time frames. Right? The owner starts to get a better picture of what their building's actually going to look like with this LOD 200 starting to hit 300 model. So we're trying to pull all this together. Once again, now my estimators, they're not creating these models. This model is coming from the architect and the engineer. I don't want to spend money making a model for the architect engineer. I want their model. That is the efficient, productive way to do it. But I need their cooperation to make that take place. So then you drop back to consensus docs is here today. They're the BIM Addendum 301. We use that all the time. We love the 2008 version. And so ask them for the 2008 version. I think it's easier to work with. But we use that to get the architects and engineers on board. How many of you have asked an architect and engineer for a model and were told, no, we don't share that? I thought everybody's hand would go up. Some of you, maybe some of you haven't asked. That's what's happened, right? Because if you've asked very much, you've been told no. They're scared we're going to use it for quantity takeoff and turn around and beat them up over the head with it. So we put out a BIM addendum and we say, look, we know we are still responsible for quantum. We're still the estimators. My estimator is going to take all this off, right? And so now the releases that they'll give you sometimes are scary. I've seen releases that say, by giving you this model, we are no longer responsible for any of the elements of design of this project. How? No, I do not want the model. What if I have to sign this, right? And when we pointed out how absurd that sounded, they were like, oh, yeah, that's not what we meant. Well, go ahead and sign it. No, I don't care. If it's not what you meant, you change the language. That's how a contract works. And so, anyways, those are all the things that we're bringing people together. We've got to start having collaborative relationships, and that involves trust. And so architectural firms, engineering firms that you've worked with in the past, that you have a relationship, they work much better for you, right? They're the ones to get started on as you go through this process. And the BIM addendum covers a lot of those legal issues and makes it a nice level playing field. You're telling them you're not going to hold them responsible for quantities, and you're also telling them you're not going to steal their model and go build it somewhere else, right? Oh. All right, back on target. And at level 300 model, completely 300, this is directly from the architects and engineers with a full level 3 schedule. So this is at the very early on in the project. This is how we intend to go build this project. I'm going to bounce ahead and get past the civil work. There we go. So we're actually picking a real crane location. We're spinning this model around to make sure, does that crane actually reach everything we need it to reach? And doing the logistics that way. You can see we have, the slab split. We're doing it in 2 phases. We're stair stepping. We're moving up. We're superintendent is participating in this process because this is his schedule. If I go produce this and I haven't talked to the superintendent, it will be wrong. There's just no question. I have to have him involved. So now this is a scheduler. I want my scheduler working with the 4D because a scheduler can build a schedule better in 4D than they can in the traditional 2D. Because traditional, they would take and they would have their P6, P3, SureTrack, whatever you're using over here, and they're going to have a desk with a whole bunch of plans sitting over here. And they're going to spend hours flipping through the plan, trying to understand the scope of work to get the schedule right. Or they're going to copy and paste an old schedule from another project and leave a 30-year scope out. Either way, whichever way you want to do that. When they have the model available and they're using the programs that you can use, they're just dragging and dropping components. In fact, they could highlight a slab and say, create a schedule activity for this slab, and it's assigned to it. And they assign all of the elements, and this model starts to disappear as they grab these pieces and they assign it. And so then once they've assigned it all, the models all disappeared. Then they put the tasks in order, they push play, and you get to see something like this. And I love it when we push play on a schedule and you're just cruising along and you're about the 6th floor and your columns are coming up and all of a sudden the 8th floor windows pop up. Right? Because that was the schedule they built. That was the schedule that was about to be published, but they hadn't, you can't see all of that. But when we push play and it becomes obvious, we get to fix it before I publish it out, because then I get to see it and fix it, and then it's not the window contractor coming back to me and saying, hey, you're an idiot, right? I would rather catch my own mistakes first. So that's how we use the 4D. That's who we get involved there. And I'm trying to keep pulling this back to the people. This isn't a BIM department. Yeah, I am the BIM department for our company, right? And I'm trying not to be the BIM department for my company, right? I want to get rid of my position eventually, right? I want BIM to be being done by the people in the normal positions. All right, so we're level 3. You guys are all familiar with estimates, yes? No. The schedule is actually faster and easier to manage when you're doing it via 4D. And so the scheduler, and that scheduler just hasn't stepped up into the 4D yet. So we have another person that helps them with the 4D and they work together, but they're on 15, 16 projects. And so it was kind of a balance. Do we hire a second scheduler or do we just team them up? And we team them up and it's worked really well. And so we strengthen the people where we can. The scheduler came out of shipyard work and been scheduling ships. So he's new to scheduling buildings, and so he didn't necessarily understand sequence. So I didn't want to overload him with 4D the same time he's trying to understand commercial construction. And so we just teamed him up with somebody. That's a great question because that helps you understand on the people. And we do have some projects with a full-time scheduler, but not a project. This is a medium-sized project. Great. Okay. Lean, target value design, still going on. We're still talking about modeling. Modeling itself is a lean practice, especially if your architects and engineers will share the models with you weekly, maybe monthly, but weekly is a lot better. Because what's always happened in the past, they're running down the road with a design, and then all of a sudden the owner's like, no, I don't like that. And they have to walk way backwards and undo a whole bunch of things and head down another road. But that's because they're doing 30, 60, 90 reviews. They're way far into it. What I'd rather do is weekly reviews. So I'm doing that gives me a 20, a 25, a 35, a 30 review. You're just moving right on through and catching things fast and early. That is lean. Okay. Quality, constructability reviews, getting the superintendent into the model before it's done and starting to look at that. Starting to pull in some of the details, see how it works. Now, at this phase, we're getting ready to issue the specs. So that's a big quality phase here now. Going through the specifications, making sure that they are the right level of quality for what is desired on this project. Because the owner loves to call out for a level 4 drywall finish and then ask for level 5, right? We've seen that before, but they don't really want to pay for level 5. But if we let them put a level 5 in the specs to begin with, then they're going to be paying for it and we'll deliver it, but they usually just don't want that, especially on a condo like this. They'd do a level 2 if they thought they could. All right. So a big focus, once again, owner, designer, GC, all involved in these phases. Okay, so here's examples. So we're now looking at quantities in the model, but we're not going to go back and beat the architect over these quantities. What we're doing is we're looking for specific pieces. So where do these decorative columns appear? So we find them in the model and we highlight them and then we just double click and there they are. So in this list of items, we can just see where these exist. Otherwise, this is a 300,000 square foot core and shell building. How are we going to find where these 4 columns go that are listed out in the specs? This makes that so much faster and easier. Another example. There was 16 300-watt incandescent 277 volt bulbs. The electrician was like, I can't find these anywhere. We go to the model, I do a quick search, I double click on them, there they are. When they're flying around that canopy and Indiana Jones was playing, you saw those canopies, they were uplights underneath those, but the electrician couldn't find them for the life of them. But now we're able to find them quick and easy in the model. But we're not beating up the architect over the quantities. Now we can go back to him and say, why are these this voltage? Can we go with a 120 or maybe even a 4? Can we do something other than run a dedicated voltage to this location? And that helps us get a better product for the client. Okay, here's another one. This is pulling off that you can export that to Excel, and then you're ready to dump into. These are just pure quantities, right? There's just square footages all over the place here. Square footage of curtain panels. That is 21,000 square feet of curtain wall in that project. Now, how long would it take an estimator to figure that out? It would have taken a couple days of counting and doing math, and they would have had mistakes. When they'll share the model, yes, we pull the quantities from it. We know exactly what the square footage of curtain wall is. But then if the architect has to add some somewhere, we can't beat them up over it. We've got to be playing nice over it. All right, here's another example. Software out there. Assemble has a booth here today if you want to stop by and look at them. This is what this is. I've taken model version 1 and model version 3, and I've compared them. In this 8-week period, just 2 downloads and about 10 minutes of processing while someone walks over, talks to someone in the lounge, comes back, gets a cup of coffee, whatever. They come back, and everything in green has been added, everything in red was deleted. That's everything. Turns out that's really what happened. This high school was major budget deals, and so they actually pretty much deleted everything and started over. But that was a really good thing to know, because all they did was ship us a new set of drawings, right? It was great to know coming into it that this was the scope of work that we were dealing with. All right. Okay. Architects and engineers should be doing their own work in a decent way, right? This is a spread footing. This is a precast panel. I can't build that, right? I can't notch the spread footing and drop it in or anything. I don't know why the structural engineer modeled it this way, but I do know why they modeled it this way. It just didn't make any sense to me. They modeled it this way because all they were doing was producing plans. They weren't thinking about the model. The plans, when you cut this and you look at the down view, it all looks good. And there's a note on there that says top of footing elevation 88 feet, which means all those footings are actually down 2 feet from where they're shown here. So their plans were good, but their model was about useless. So this was one that's easier to show. The other good one was the floating slabs. They were 4 feet up, nothing underneath them. Can't build those yet. If I could, I wouldn't be here doing presentations. All right. Architects and engineers, how do they do it? They should be using the parametric functions within the models. I know a lot of general contractors in here. This is the idea behind all of the BIM software. I opened up this view and I highlighted the door. Okay, so you see the door here? Yeah, highlighted. You can't really see it over there. And highlighted everywhere, including the door schedule. And that's one of the reasons I got into BIM and Lean in the first place. I was on a federal prison, and me and the superintendent got to spend a full week going through the door schedule, making sure the swings and the hardware and everything all matched up. Complete waste of time. We found mistakes. We did, but we shouldn't have ever had to do that. When they're using the parametric functionality, it's easier and faster, more efficient for them to design than it is to try to coordinate all that and have people double check it all the time. If they will use this, their cost of design goes down, right? So if architects and engineers are trying to charge you more for BIM, it's because they haven't figured out what they're doing yet. As they start to figure it out, their costs come down. All right. Okay, now here's our outlet mall again. This is at the end of design. So we can take and pull those models in, run them through a 3ds Max, drop some fun people in there, have it look neat, and run through the mall. Now, this doesn't help me build it at all, but this surely does help the owner, because now they have this availability for marketing, showing it off, all of those sort of things, right? And this is the design. Those are the finishes. This is what is expected to look like. Hopefully more people, but that's what we're after. And so we don't do everything just for us, right? This is a collaborative relationship. I can produce this quick and easy. It's helpful to the owner. Let's go do it. Lots of times the architects and engineers are starting to do this too, right? They're starting to produce this more and more, but whoever can do it, just do it. Okay, so I just walked you through LOD 200 and 300. And so that's our schedule. I showed you level 2 schedule, level 3 schedule. I showed you class 4. It's hard to show an estimate. It's a bunch of numbers, right? I showed you how we got to our estimate, the amount of detail that went into it. Some of it was still square footage and schematic, but now we're starting to pull real numbers from curtain wall, things like that. Our target value design. We actually talked about a design assist, a design build BIM process. Those are a lot better for efficiency. Those are lean concepts. Quality, we're really digging into our specs, making sure they're right. We're getting our quality requirements set for the project. We're starting to actually have the architects and engineers actually federate their models, pull their models together and check to make sure that it's actually constructible. The biggest constructability is overhead space, right? They put too much stuff in the overhead and it doesn't fit and it's never gonna fit. And then they just figure, oh, you guys just coordinate it later. I want to avoid that. I would like to have that worked out ahead of time. And then the people, right? At LOD 200, lots of architect and engineer with, and the owner, or if a construction manager is in play, they should be greatly involved in all of that. Your construction document phase, the general contractor ought to be really involved in that because they can really help the architect out. But it has to be a collaborative relationship. If they get in there and they're just fighting at each other, oh, your drawings suck, you don't know how to draw anything. I've heard all the comments back and forth, and I don't like it. I'd rather work together with people. Yes, sir.
You said on the estimate that you're not going to hold the architect responsible for quantities and the estimate. But meanwhile, you sound like you're taking your quantities off the model.
That's right.
But, I mean, there could be errors in that model.
That's right. Those errors, and that's why they're not responsible for the quantities, right? That's not our US system. And so if there's an error in the model, we're doing the estimate. We have to be looking at it. So I can tell you, that model will not have a single item in there called caulk, right? And so I can't go back to them and say, well, your model doesn't have any caulk in it.
But even the square footage of curtain wall,
Right.
they can maybe not identify, so you can't just use the model.
That's right. So we team that up. You're right. I don't just blindly say, here's the model quantities. But I pull the quantities, and then you look around the model, you look at things. If I'm browsing through the model and I see a large opening with no curtain wall in it, hey, they just left it out here. I've got to hand take that off and add in that amount of curtain wall. And we start to, we're still responsible for the estimate, but we can get there faster. So there's some things like the cubic yards of spread footings. Man, I don't have to do that anymore. It's really easy to look at this. I know this is an F10 footing, and this is an F12 footing, and this is an F3 footing, and I now know exactly how much cubic yards goes in each one of them. I don't even have to add them up. I just pull it off of there. I know that is going to be accurate. I still have to add my waste factor, right? But I don't have to, somebody doesn't have to do all that counting and math. But that,
They don't identify that F3 or F10 on the model. How will that computer know it's there?
that's right. That's why computer just gives us an advance. It shortens our time period, but we still have to have a human doing all of this. We have to have an estimator running it, an estimator looking at it. They can't, if they just pulled that spreadsheet and turned in an estimate, I'd fire them. They have to spend time in that model understanding the project. And in reality, they understand it faster when they can move a model around than they can flipping sheets. Because in sheets, you have to build all of these 3D pictures. And this, the 3D picture is already built. You can just assign, are the values matching up? And so, but you're exactly right. We can't just blindly run into this on the estimating side because we will kill ourselves. Back first. Yes. The design build, and then what you're doing is you're giving that feedback to the architects and engineers. Hopefully you're getting these models. This is so much better in a design build IPD scenario. In the hard bid scenario, that's very difficult. We have had to get our models, and then you're in a bidding situation and you're turning in RFIs and you're saying, hey, we think that this scope needs to be adjusted. Hey, we did not identify. We did not see any fire extinguisher cabinets anywhere in this project, right? So then you're leveling that playing field. You still have to go through all that process. But you're actually seeing those things where other people, they might not have time because you only have a week to go through this whole deal. That, your question. We kind of mix. There's a, different, some of them are better at schematic estimating and they end up being more of our pre-con folks, but the pre-con goes interface with the estimators. They all sit with each other and we have multiple locations. We don't have one big central estimating office. We've tried to divvy that up, but they'll move together for a big bid for a couple days, things like that. But we try to mix that. And then I have a BIM champion for the estimating group. And he does a lot of the paperwork, or model work, I should say. Downloads the model, he throws it up in that program that lists those quantities. And then the estimators can go and browse around in it and do that, and he just kind of serves them to help facilitate them getting the information. because I haven't been able to teach all the estimators how to do it. Some of them don't ever want to touch a model. I mean, that's the reality of it. In fact, I had our lead mechanical guys on Tuesday. I was telling him, sometime you're going to have to put all this information in the models because the owner's going to want all this stuff. And he's like, I'm never going to. I'm like, I mean, in 3 to 5 years, if we're not doing it, we're going to be out of business. He's like, I'm retired. I care less. That was the conversation we had. He's got like 2 more years and he's done. So he just is not going to do any of it. But golly, if I could get the stuff out of his head, and that's kind of what I was trying to do, is get as much out of his head before he retires, because the man is absolutely amazing, right? You know, so. Okay, did I answer all 4 of those comments adequately? Wonderful. Okay, so I walked you through the 2 to 300. That's your design authoring phase. That's most of the work is taking place, architects, engineers, but we need that interface from other groups in order to be more efficient, more effective. Right? Everything I'm doing is talking about we're less productive than we were 50 years ago. I want to bring that level up. Okay, so now let's move on to our 350, 400. So same model. But now we're starting to federate it. This is back to our outlet mall and about the same view that I ran through with you last time. And now we're going to see a lot more up inside this model. What we're going to see is light fixtures, duct work. We're actually getting the contractors. This is their fabrication level information. So they're really locating exactly where a light fixture hangs. You can see they didn't run any conduit in here, right? If you're really good at modeling in BIM and the electrician's been doing it for years, like some guys I had dinner with the other night, they're going to model and bend all their conduit because it's more efficient. But if you're just getting started, don't try to model all the conduit. You're going to waste your efforts, okay? Because you're not ready to go fabricate from it. Get other things figured out first, right? Steel, they've been modeling detailed level 400 for years, right? In fact, my biggest problem with steel guys trying to get a level 400 model is saying, hey, I need your model, and the guy we're contracted with, oh, no, we don't use a model. Yes, you do. Like, no, you don't. No, we don't. I was like, okay, you're detailing with Pat Bosworth out of Birmingham, aren't you? Yes. He's been modeling for 25 years. Just ask him for the model. Well, we've never done that before. Just ask. Just ask him. And they ask him, like, this is great. Thank you for asking. All right. And so that gave you an idea of this model. You can see here, this is a better representation of the bar joists. We had not gone to a bar joist manufacturer yet. And so it's better to represent that as a solid plate because nobody knows what that webbing is, right? Until you actually buy out the bar joist, you have no way of knowing what webbing is going to look like. That's a good thing to know between 300 and 400 on bar joists. All right. Okay, a level 4 CPM. Okay, so what's the difference between level 3 and level 4? It's still the same number of activities. It's trade feedback. To get to a level 4, you have to publish the schedule out to all of those vendors and subcontractors and tell them, is this what you intend to do? I know lots of GCs. I know some of our own folks are like, I'm never going to do that. Because they always think they're going to come back and tell, oh yeah, no, we can't do that in 5 days. That's going to take 568 days to do that work, right? They're going to fluff everything and do all that. Okay, they probably will the first time. But then you come back to them and say, that doesn't work. Yes? No. Historical data to build it out. That gets you a level 3, your own historical data. When you start pulling in information from the installer. Now, for the stuff we self-performed, like the precast panels where we're self-performing those, that was already a level 4 because we had real production information to go behind it, not just historical data. So that's how we build this out. We get it back there. And you have to push back. They're going to come back. They might have a tendency to float their durations and add a bunch to them. And that doesn't work. You've got to bring more people on if that's what you're going to do. But when you couple that with lean and you start bringing the last planner system, you pull all that float out. And so you have to be doing this together. And this helps establish a collaborative relationship. Right? I know many specialty contractors, subcontractors, when I sent this out to them, I said, I need all your feedback on the schedule. You want what? Yeah, I need you to tell me if these durations are right. I've never had anybody ask for that before. Good, you can do it now. We don't know how. It's like, yes, you do. Just sit down and go through them all. And the other thing I do to help encourage that is I tell them all that their schedule of values that you're going to bill me for has to match line for line with the schedule, with the CPM schedule. I don't want you to bill me for a single thing that you have not planned a time when you're going to do that, and I don't want you to plan a single thing that you're going to do that you're not going to bill me for. And then some of them just overwhelmed and you have to walk them through it. But boy, I get good schedule feedback when I do that. All right, so that's how you get to a level 4 CPM schedule. Now, this is what that looks like. So let's go back to our outlet mall. I'll skip forward a little bit. This is a little washed out. I wish I could turn the lights down. All right, there it is. That's a pad been poured. That's the center of the pad. It's yellow right now because it's poured, it's cured, and we're using it for laydown for precast. You see the footings coming in around it being put. Can you see the crane? Is that visible up there? You can. It's a little washed out. Now you see it moving? It's going to look like a yellow dot for some people in the back. The crane is assigned to real activities. We actually need a crane to erect the precast panels. So we put a crane in during the duration of precast panel erection. And we just simulate it going around so we have rough flow. Okay? But this is a real schedule with the actual model. This is the fabrication level model. This is really where things are. One of the main reasons that we put the cranes in is you'll see as we get around here in this area, that's not much room. I think there's 30 feet between these structures, and we're taking a crane that's about 20 feet wide between them, but then footings and everything. We wanted to know if we'd actually fit. And so that's what we did there. Oh, I'm about to miss a good story. I missed a good story. Okay, it's hard to see in the back, but if you look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cranes showing in the screen right now. When I first showed this to the superintendent, he cussed me up and down. You and your BIM doing you don't know how to schedule, all this sort of stuff. Hey, okay, I just thank you for letting me know you don't like my schedule. Now let me ask you a couple questions. I said, are you going to need a crane to set these rooftop units up here? You go, yeah, but it's not going to be that big crane. My bad. I can put a little rubber tire crane in the picture for you if that's what you want. We can do that, okay? All right. Are you going to need a crane to erect these precast panels? That's as far as I had to go. He's a good superintendent. He's a smart superintendent. It's like, you mean to tell me that we need 5? We can't have 5 cranes. I'm like, that's why I brought this to you. Well, we've got to accelerate building 5. That we can't go longer. We've got to accelerate building 5 and get it done so we can do this 2 cranes. Great. We accelerated building 5 in the ground when it was earthwork and when it was footings, accelerated it then so we weren't having to put 5 cranes on the project. Huge success, exactly what we needed. We opened for Black Friday just like we're supposed to. Everybody's happy. But I don't think we could have done it without the 4D schedule. Yeah, everything might have printed reports that had crane loading and all this sort of stuff, but people just don't see it when it's there buried in a report. But when it's live like this, people get it and they see it and they fix stuff. Okay, so this was the planning schedule ahead of time. Let's bounce to the next one. Let's use the arrow key. There we go. Okay, now this is an even more detailed schedule. I'm not going to push play on this one very long because this is a 6-week look ahead that we're using just to see what happens over the next 6 weeks. To a bystander, it's hard to even see what's going on here and identifying the ductwork coming in, the roof, the things like this. But to the guys that are out building this project, looking at this every 2 weeks to see what's coming up in the next 6 weeks, they plan their work a lot better. The big key to our last planner scenario and making that successful is seeing in particular buildings what's happening over the next few weeks. So this is actually using it. And when I talk about people, this is getting last planners involved. All right, clash detection, underground utilities. I don't know why everybody thinks BIM is just overhead work in the ceilings. Clashing all your utilities, making sure all those works is a great thing to do. Being able to look at the full model. I'm showing you different pieces of software, different views, and then be able to see all the clashes in an area. This is everything that clashes with concrete beams. Just a quick overview, not a lot of stuff there, but it's all got to be fixed. All got to be taken care of. When it comes to clash detection, a good superintendent would find 90% of what we find. What we're doing is we're finding all of those things 6 weeks, 8 weeks earlier than he would have found them. And so we can make the changes faster than he can. And then also we're freeing up that good superintendent to worry about productivity in the field. Are people getting work in place? He's not out there telling people, move your stuff over, it doesn't fit. He's over there, how quickly can you get this in? Okay, so I just walked you through slides, effort, what's taking place for level 350 to 400. You see how this is growing. We're getting more detailed. We're getting more involved. We're getting more people in it. So if you're looking to start this in a company, start on that early spot where there's not as many people involved. Try to get involved in the level 100, the level 200, start implementing that, and then start working your way more and more into it. All right, shop models. Okay, now let's talk about some of the installation items. So we're out there in the field, we have this model. The model looks great. This staircase, monumental staircase, the client was they make a statement with that staircase, right? We are a Fortune 500 company, look at us. It's a magnificent thing. You start modeling, and we're talking out in the field, this wrap that goes around the center portion of that staircase, there was these fiberglass panels, and their tolerance was like a 64th of an inch. I don't know anybody that erects steel to a 64th of an inch. So the only way to make that happen, yeah, we can model down to what, 128th of an inch, but that doesn't do any good because when they put it out in there in the field, there's drift, there's bend. I mean, if it gets hot one day, your panels wouldn't fit, right? So we laser scanned it, and we got an exact picture of what it looked like. You can see all the studs and the steel work here in the center, exactly what that was going to look like. And then we took this laser scan out to fabrication, and we're able to build and then overlay the laser scan with the model. Hey, that all matched up really nice. That's good. But then we were able to use the laser scan to fabricate and end up with a final product that looked like this. Now, this is a professional photographer. You see how the lights are all starred up there, right? So it doesn't glow quite this much. It's still really neat. The other thing you can't really see is those are circular LED screens going around those columns that then rotate and show stuff. That's really impressive too. Great client to work for. And the client thought we were good to work for too. I'll give a statement from him later. Okay. This is level 500. We're out there installing. We're putting up steel. And then we're pulling up the model on a regular basis and saying, hey, are these matching? And they're matching. Everything is pulling. That's we're viewing. We're making sure it works. If the schedule in the field starts to deviate for whatever condition, an RFI or something, we go back and we change our model. We change our time model, and then what is the consequence of this taking place? How do we fix this? Okay, level 5 CPM, it's blank. Doesn't exist. Well, if you're doing shutdown work, yes, you'll schedule the level 5 because you'll take this bolt off, put this bolt on. Anybody in here do shutdown work? All right. Sorry, I can't help you much more than that today. I know you guys do. You can do the level 5. You can do the 4D with the level 5. I've seen it done. You're putting in temporary hoist, you're pulling over a large motor, you're dropping it down under the slabs. It's great. But I have limited experience in that realm. I'm going to stick with what I know. To get to level 5, we use our lean and our last planner system. I'm not to go into details of what last planner is. Hopefully you'll pick that up in another session. But this is a picture of our last planner board up in a project that we did recently. No, this is actually, I took this picture Thursday, not recently. This is ongoing active project. This is your how many weeks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks. I think there's one more board over here. Okay? 12 weeks. You'll see it really detailed in the week that's coming up, right? And then it just kind of gets a little bit less and less as we go out. Those boards are hanging on nails up there. And when we're done with this week, you take a picture of it so we have a record in case we need to look at it. You strip all the post-it notes, move every board down one spot, and you're ready to go again. And you keep all your detail, it just keeps moving. This superintendent, I worked with him multiple years on different projects. George is amazing. This isn't the one that cussed me out. I like him better than the one that cussed me out. But really good. He'd been doing last planner in his head for 30 plus years, right? But now with the post notes on the board, it's not just George that's an amazing planner. It's the rest of the team working with him. And they are planning better and better. And this project is gaining time. I hardly ever would see that before. If something got behind, if weather hurt us or something, we always had to go way out in the schedule and make a bunch of arrangements to try to recover that and pull it back in. But now what we're doing is we just say, hey, we got a little behind. Let's see what we can make up in the next 2 weeks. Any of you guys get some stuff done fast? And we coordinate that well enough that the next trade is ready to go. If somebody's done half a day early, they know that a day ahead of time, and the next guy can slip in there and be doing the work. It's absolutely amazing. This is the superintendent meeting now. George is really good at that. He doesn't have any other separate meeting. They come in here, they stand in front of the board, and they go through this. Every issue. They have a safety topic to begin with, but every issue the superintendent needs to talk about is here. If somebody says, hey, we need to get the porta-johns moved to this other location, he writes himself his own little red Post-it note. And these are his Post-it notes that he puts up there for the things that he's going to do. And that's how he does it. All right. Let's see. 6-week look ahead. Hey, I doubled up on that one. We won't look at it again. Great. I didn't even ask for this. This showed up about a week ago. I had to edit all my slides. That's why I'm using my own computer today. Okay. This is that scheduler. This is a different project than the other one I showed you, but that team of schedulers you asked me about, one's really 4D, they decided they thought the project needed to see this. And so they actually ran the baseline on the left with the actual over here to show them. You can see, look, the actual's ahead of the baseline. They're actually picking up time, and they're ahead of work till now. Turns out those slabs, they had problems with the form work, and the contractor didn't get there and get his work done. And so now, all of a sudden, they're behind. They're a whole level behind. But I didn't ask those guys to produce this. That is truly what I'm looking for in our BIM, our scheduling, and our lean, is the people out there doing the work deciding this will help the team be better. And so that's where I'm really excited about something like that. Yeah. Okay, here's a weekly work plan. I took that other picture last week, showed it first because it's a prettier picture. This is how that weekly work plan started when they were first doing work. This was a couple months ago. It was just a couple little drawings on the wall and 15 Post-it notes. It looked pretty sad. But it grew into that really nice plan that you have going there as more people came on board and as they started participating. All right. So there you are, week 1, week 2. You can see this is just one piece of butcher paper, right? And they were like, well, what do we do? Get us some boards, we can move them, you know. We didn't tell them to put the boards on nails. My superintendents are excellent at this sort of stuff. They can figure out the mechanics of it. So this is our last planner, weekly planning. Everybody's got their own notes. This is a zoom in, all the different handwritings. This is not something that you don't do last planner for someone else. This can't be a central office function. It has to be the team there. And they'll actually spend time around the model, looking at the 4D schedule. I don't think I got that slide in here. I caught some guys. It was awesome. You show up there at the job site, see how things are going, and they were actually looking at the 4D model prior to the last planner meeting so that people would understand the schedule they're about to talk about. That's when we're talking about bringing all of these tools together to increase productivity in the field. That's what I'm really after. Now, I told you on BIM to kind of start with the LOD 100, 200. Lean, you want to start in the field. You really want to be looking at your last planner system and starting to change how your superintendent meetings work. Okay, here's a huddle, bunch of guys standing around looking at it. Quality control program out in the field. You've got to go electrical. You've got to be pulling this together. And if their program waits till that night to send out the email about there being a punch list issue, I wouldn't get it. You want something that pushes the notification. Right? If I'm out there and I say, hey, there's a ladder left in this electrical room, we're trying to do inspections today, right? Somebody get this ladder out of there. I mark it in there. I saw the colors painted, it's electrician. Electrician, ladder left in the electrical room, right? I want that notice going out in 5-10 minutes. An electrician, oh, ladder in the room. So he can send somebody right away to go get it. Now, maybe he gets 15, 20 items and he has to sort through them, but that one is urgent. You've got to reduce latency. That's got to be turning over fast for punch lists to be happening quickly. Our old paper processes are terrible. How many of you have been through that where you issue the punch list item, 2 days later you go out there to see if it's done, it's not done, so they put it on the list again. So now it's on there twice. But the day after you put it on there the second time, then he went out there and did the work, and then he did the work and he marked it off. So then it comes back 3 days later and the first item is marked off as being done, but he hasn't gotten the second item yet, so now it's on there again, and then that poor sub spends 2 days trying to figure out where in the world I'm supposed to be touching up the paint. I swear I already did this. I've been through that too many times. It's ridiculous. You got to go electronic. You got to do one of these systems. There's a lot of them out there. Okay? And you install per the model. This is where your quality comes into play. The purpose of my level 400 model is I don't want any superintendent, any foreman ever out there again making a decision about where something runs or where it goes. They should be able to just install it. Everything is laid out. It is done. And I got to have that conversation with a guy on this particular project I have a picture of. Hey, we already coordinated all this. Your chilled water, that 8-inch chilled water line goes there, not there. He's like, nah, I'll figure it out. No, you're not accounting. All these other trades have to go. No, but that's the best place to run it. I was like, look, If you are just going to go out here and try to do this like that cowboy at the beginning, because this isn't your first rodeo, then you'll get to go rodeo some other place. Can't fire him, he doesn't work for me, but I can't ask him to leave the job site. That word spread quickly. All of a sudden, everyone installed the model. It was wonderful. So that was the level 5 right here. Okay, LOD 500, level 5, you're out in the field, your quality, you've got to install the model, you got to be using your last planner, you're starting to pull all this together. Start to see real results. We can start to reduce labor costs 10, 15% on a project. That's a lot of money on a project. If my trades can save 5% on a project, maybe they'll pass 1% on the owner, 1% on to me. I make a little bit more money. We get all the work in town. That's what I'm after. Okay? All right. BIM grows with the project. All of this grows. It gets more detailed as you go through. This is where we've ended up. We've gone through each one of these areas. We see it grow. We see the different focuses to be taking place on each one of those levels and how it works. Okay? Our schedule develops and grows as we move through with the project, as we start to get better models. Okay, our estimate refines as we start to get better and better information. This is how our lean practices fit into it. Feel free to download the slides. You'll be able to dig into them later. This is an overview today. Quality practices. Those are what are taking place in each of the phases of this work. These are all the people that ought to be participating. Okay, all of these people, they all have a role in BIM. They all have a role in quality. They all have a role in scheduling. Okay? All of them have to be playing in all of these aspects to make it happen. And what you're after, I'm going to skip this. I'm out of time. There's a video of that really nice building, but we're not going to play that video. What we do want to say is virtual design and construction, it's taking BIM to the projects, getting information to the field. Okay? When we couple that with lean and estimating and all these other functions, we start to see real progress on projects. That productivity curve is going to come up as we implement this, and that's what I'm about. I told you on the CenturyLink building that the owner liked us and we liked the owner. This is the owner, and this was his thought on our project. He is German. This is his happy face. Oh, I just killed the punchline. Let me try again. How did I kill the punchline? Go back, go back. Continue recording. Go back. All right, let's hit the punchline again.
I don't think there should be any doubt, having gone through it, that you would use more BIM.
That was a summary. I asked him if he liked the BIM process. He said use more BIM. Right? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.